Thursday already? Wasn't yesterday Friday? Or was that 2 days ago? Was that Tuesday I had the car inspected? The DMV extended the deadline. The IRS did too, but levied fees. Burgers and shakes on Wall Street with Emmett and Linus. Was that Saturday? Lunch with Michelle rescheduled to Friday. Is it Friday already? Did I miss it? This one's called Gratitude. Gratitude for sunlit green, the pond's watery mirror, the hummingbird's buzz, surprisingly loud from a bird so small. This is a dialogue with Angus. Angus is my son. He died 8 years ago. Dialogue with Angus. There seemed to be a hopeless gulf between us, my words lobbed back, dropping meaninglessly around me. I can't do this. You're too good at this. I'm no match for you. We're doing it, he reacts. I'm proud of us. You don't hear me, you don't listen. I hold back tears. I do listen. His grown-up arms encircle me. Looking into his eyes, I see into him as clearly as when he was a child, back when we were each other's first choice. This is another one about my son Angus when he was little. His eyes greeny gray like the river, sparkling with sunlight, diamonds of light on water. He was full of life, neck deep in the briny Rappahannock. I was up to my elbows. He was neck deep, full of life in the briny Rappahannock. This last poem is it's called Standoff with a Blue Heron. I have a large pond at my house, and there's a heron. Startled, he unfurled his sail-like wings and rose from where he stalked the grassy bank. Hey, I yelled. The heron took off flying low across the pond. You! It's hard to know what words to use when the wild bird of prey, no matter how astonishingly beautiful, is eyeing beloved coy. The truth is, he may be focusing on frogs, which are smaller than the fish and have fewer sharp edges. After a 2-year hiatus, frogs have returned. I've missed their splashing as I approach and their night song. A turtle resembling a clump of dirt or a good-sized rock, the very opposite of the elegant bird, appears in the shallow water among the feeding fish. Mud and grass cling to its shell. The featureless head reaches out, gulping fish pellets, each gulp a tiny splash. Standing defiantly on the opposite bank like a crane on an ancient Chinese scroll, the heron, expert at hiding, takes one haughty step behind a leafy branch. I can still see you. Or is that a patch of dappled sunlight? My guest tonight, Steve Lewis, is a freelance writer and editor. A former mentor at SUNY Empire State College and a longtime member of the Sarah Lawrence College Writing Institute faculty. His work has been published widely, and he's the senior editor, literary ombudsman for the spoken word venue Writers Read. His book list is vast and includes A Light Along the Shore, a novel, as well as a poetry collection he co-authored with his daughter Elizabeth Bayou Grace, entitled Fire in Paradise, published by Cod Hill Press. I'm delighted to welcome Steve Lewis to Words Carry Us live stream.
Hi, Betty.
Hi, Steve. Have you been writing a long time?
I have been writing since 1964.
Oh,
When
that's when you started writing?
I was a stupid college freshman who had a roommate who told me that my life was worthless if I didn't write poetry, and I thought he was just a jackass. And then I went out drinking one night with my friends, and I couldn't get any girl to dance with me, and I sat in the corner and I decided to write a poem, and it was just this pathetic, woe is me poem. And some girl came over, said, "What are you doing?" And I got my first date.
It worked.
It worked. Well, it worked every single time.
Wow. Gee.
And then it sort of took hold. But I did it just as a dating tool for at least a year.
Well, for whatever reason, it seems to be as good as any other. And it seems to have worked. And then you got serious about writing after that.
Yeah, just slowly it morphed into something that became very important.
So 1964, that's a long time ago.
Yeah, well, it's a really long time ago. That was Madison, Wisconsin.
And what were you studying?
In truth, I was studying English and eventually writing, but I was studying nothing in 1964.
You weren't studying anything?
I was barely making it through classes.
I had a similar experience.
Yeah.
I don't remember writing anything in college, and I don't know how I got through high school, but I did.
Yeah, me too.
I did.
Me too.
I don't remember writing at all, and I don't remember it giving me the pleasure that it gives me now. So I'm wondering if it's turned into pleasure for you.
I always like doing it, but it's only in maybe the last 10 years that it's become pleasure.
Uh-huh.
That there's something about writing. In the earlier years, I was writing with a purpose for magazines.
So you had assignments.
Yeah, and I was writing dad books and dad articles, and then when the kids grew up, I sort of lost my audience.
Oh.
And then I actually just realized that I could write whatever I wanted to write. And at that point, with the first novel that I published with Cod Hill, I started with a phrase that I heard in a convenience store on Hatteras Island, and I wrote a sentence, and then I wrote a paragraph, and then I wrote a page, and I never knew where it was going, and it was exhilarating. And everything I write now is exactly like that. I never know what to do, what the blank page offers me.
I have a similar experience, and it is exhilarating, I believe. I also feel that my writing, my magazine writing, taught me to write.
Right.
It was like it didn't matter what I was saying, as long as I got the right the right amount of words in, and they made sense.
Right.
Yeah.
And they satisfied someone else's notion of what should be said. And in some of them, especially writing for, I have 7 children, and writing for children's magazines or parents' magazines, they want you to sell something. Books, diapers. So there's a sub-agenda there. They not only want you to write an interesting article that won't offend anybody, but will sell some product.
Well, what products were you selling?
Diapers.
Diapers.
Diapers, other writers, books on how to raise your children, which are the worst books ever written.
Nobody knows how to raise children.
No, it's exactly. So.
And were you interested in the arts before you became a writer, or are you interested in the arts now? I mean, as a creator.
In high school, I was really an empty vessel. I had a girlfriend. I played 3 sports. I didn't do my homework.
It sounds perfect.
Yeah, it was lovely.
It's not the way people go to high school. Where did you grow up? What high school did you ruin?
I grew up on Long Island, and I went to a high school in Old Westbury that wanted to be a private school, so they called it the Wheatley School, but it really was just a pretentious, dishonest name for Wheatley High School.
I'm speechless, sorry. Would you like to tell us about your recently published books? So there are 2 of them, right?
Sure, yes.
And I understand that the novel, you wrote the novel, and also the poetry after you had COVID, is that correct?
Yes. Both of them are post-COVID, and maybe just a slight bit of background. I really, before COVID, I lived an unearned, undeserved life full of grace. 7 kids, nothing terrible happened to them. I taught at Empire State College, which was my dream job. There are several Empire State people in the audience.
How is it your dream job?
Because there were, in the early days of Empire State, there were no rules. It was the college without walls. And so we would be able to devise studies and programs specifically to whatever the student was interested in, which allowed me not to read the same lecture notes for 43 years. And to always be challenged, and it's a spectacular job.
Sounds amazing. You don't do that anymore.
No, I retired, 10 years ago or something.
Isn't being retired great?
Yeah, I haven't really. I still teach a little bit. I teach writing classes sometimes at Sarah Lawrence, and I still write every morning. But yes, it is wonderful not to have to wake up and go someplace
and do something.
And do something, right.
Right. But it's fun to do something when you feel like it.
Yeah, back to exhilarating.
So you write every morning, you have a schedule.
Yep. Yeah, wake up. I used to have to go to the bakery in New Paltz I would drive into town, get a cup of coffee and something, and then go home because I had to feel like I was going to work. But maybe I've grown up a little bit now, so I can have my coffee at home. But every morning, yeah, I.
I'm trying to develop that habit. I sort of write and in big lumpy pieces of time. How do you say that? And I'm always surprised that I'm doing it, and I do like it so much. It's like solving puzzles all the time.
Yeah, it's like solving a puzzle that I don't even know.
And you don't know what the rules are.
What the parameters are or anything. It's just the blank page offers itself
Yes.
something, and something gets a little more clear than it did the day before. Yeah.
So would you like to read something from...
Sure.
I see you reaching for the poetry book.
From Fire in Paradise, which I wrote. It's a spectacular opportunity. My daughter, Elizabeth, is a far better writer than I am, actually. And I've known it since she was like 7 years old. And I wrote some dad book and used her poem about being an old lady when she was 7 years old or 8 years old, something. Anyway, this was wonderful, and the book itself is a demarcation of when my life of grace, it didn't end, it just transitioned into something that made me stop and think. We, 7 kids, and they married 7 people.
Only one?
Yeah, well, all are married, which is just amazing, and they have produced 17 children. So we've led a life of chaos, but something about COVID made me stop and think about what this was all about. It was all quite wonderful and quite challenging in the chaos, but being quiet and especially COVID, I was the first person in Port Royal, South Carolina, to get COVID, and I was in the ICU for a week.
How long were you in the hospital?
I think it was just a week. I was so sick and so out of it. They apparently didn't know whether I would make it from day to day. But so I count that as the beginning of something, of some real change. So this is from Fire in Paradise, and it's called From My Hospital Bed. There is an epigraph at the top. It's, "For when I am weak, then I am strong." And even though I am not a religious person, it is from St. Paul in Corinthians. "So I've wandered this far into the breath-taking woods, nothing but darkness ahead. Nothing behind except what I think I remember, or perhaps made up. I don't know. Also, I don't know how I know, but I know now there is no path out of this infinite forest, nor why I am certain there is a fallen tree trunk up ahead that I will come upon and sit down, lean over, and pressing my bare forearms onto my weary thighs, gaze out through the inscrutable thicket, branches, leaves, choking vines, waiting for whatever comes next: animal, rain, morning, hunger, faith, love, the hunger of love, the everything and nothing that arrives when prayers are but childhood wishes, when we know in our scarred and perfect souls that what is sacred is profane, profane, sacred, that there is merciful strength in closing our eyes and welcoming this illness of being human with an unknowing smile." So that was lying in a bed.
And you were still ill when you wrote that?
I was recovering.
You were home again?
I was home again, and for actually quite a long time, in an isolated bedroom because we didn't want my wife to get sick and die.
Right, no.
And yeah, and then it was soon thereafter that I started to write a whole series of poems about the nearness of death. And they weren't they weren't particularly. I didn't think they were particularly melancholy, but they were a kind of seriousness that I hadn't approached before.
Will you read one of those?
Well, I'll read one more from this.
Okay.
And this, and actually this one, this is the last poem in the book. I'm supposed to hold up the title.
I think he's showing your title.
Oh, good, good. And this brings in my daughter Elizabeth also. It's called Sitting Under a Live Oak in Port Royal, South Carolina, Considering the Blank Page. Kind of odd to be pondering the blank page at this late date, right? I mean, it's long past the time to start being interested in empty spaces when I've lived my life in the midst of dizzying abundance, when I can see age spots polka dotting my hands while I type this poem, when practically every page in the notebook of my life is scribbled with indelible ink. I mean, why start now when I've never before found an empty page daunting? Nor have I ever thought about entering into white space as a battle, like my warrior poet, Elizabeth, though I know in my bones the ugliness and chaos she must face in the face of empty spaces, even now on this formerly blank page, which, by the way, is of course still lurking behind these words. Here I am, mulling blank spaces as if they are undiscovered rooms in dreams, placeless places to sit without expectation, without demand, perhaps the only spaces in what is now a long life, where I might walk past the security guards at the door and without map or guide or gun, give myself over to the void, enter into a virgin forest without destination, without knowledge of what I might come upon or come upon me, some place to sit on a down log and say, oh, not aha, just oh.
So why not?
Why not?
Yes.
No, that's, actually, in my first existential philosophy class at Wisconsin, that was the question, the final exam was why. And the only one who did really well on the test apparently was the one who wrote, why not? So.
Yes, I just mean, why not write? I mean, I wonder that you question,
Yeah.
Why now?
Yeah.
Why anything?
Exactly.
So I'm glad that you are taking it up, taking up writing in your old age or whatever. I can't talk. I didn't start writing my own work until 11 years ago, and I'm going to be 90 next month. So I'm when you talk about why now, all I can say is why not.
Right.
So your children and your grandkids have been a huge part of your life. And how could they not be?
And how could they not be?
Yes.
And they not only the center of my life and our life, but the family is just overwhelming. It's
I can imagine.
32 people.
I can imagine. I have a huge amount of grandkids. I only birthed 2 children, but I have more grandkids than you would expect.
Oh, good.
I have 8 grandkids and quite a few step-grandkids. And they're all grown up.
Right.
So do you have several projects going on at once? Or do you like a busy chef with a lot of pots boiling?
I have at least 2 going on at the same time. Ever since COVID as a sort of a break point, there's always a novel going and more poems, and then sort of moving my life along, that our beloved grandchild was killed by a drunk driver last October. And I started to write poems to get myself through it.
Yes.
And that's been another extraordinary, it's been painful, but an opportunity to stop and think about what this life has come to. And like I said, I thought I lived a life full of grace, and almost dying was one thing that was kind of interesting, but losing a child.
Not interesting.
Not interesting. It undermines everything that I ever thought was true, and actually, in an interesting way, the grumpy old guy who is my character in this book, which I started before which I wrote before my grandchild was killed, is about a grumpy old guy who's been mourning the death of his daughter for 20 years. And he sort of worn himself thin with his sons and his wife, and there are other things happening in this book, but that's...
So is Charlie you?
People have asked me.
Do people ask you that?
You'd have to ask my wife. Oops. I don't think I'm that grumpy, but I love grumpy old guys. There's something about them.
It's your inner grumpy.
Yeah, it is.
Yes. So Charlie sees a dog that's not there.
Well, Charlie has a cardiac event, goes into a coma, and wakes up 3 days later, but he has lived, I think, 6 months during that 3-day period. And he has seen St. Augustine, he has seen his beloved dead daughter, and he has acquired this big black dog that no one else can see. And they think he's crazy, and of course they've sort of done with him. And he's now experiencing, the essence of the novel is he's experiencing parallel time, not linear time. Sort of what we've been talking about. Everything switched.
So does he go back and forth?
He does. He doesn't necessarily go back and forth, but the narrative takes him all the way through the months of the time that he was living a life, and then repeats it.
So could you read some of that to us?
Sure. How are we doing time-wise?
We have some more time.
Okay.
How much reading would you like to do?
I'll keep it to a few minutes.
Are you tired?
Oh no, I'm not tired.
Okay.
I could.
Are you complaining?
I could do this for a long time.
Okay.
So, this is him after he's woken up from the hospital. He's had his adventure, the first adventure, and he's sitting with his oldest son, who he has had a lot of troubles with. A week later, Dylan is sitting on a wooden chair painted red in the studio, while outside, bright sun glints off the marshweeds shimmering after a sun shower. Charlie, his main character, swivels around on the metal stool. Charlie is a photographer and answers an entirely different question than the one he was asked. I wasn't joking. I saw him. Who? I saw St. Augustine. Dylan stares wide-eyed, speechless, a thin grin holding back what Charlie thinks might let out some kind of fearful wail he used to do when he was a small child. That's not what I asked you. I know, but I did. No joke, Dylan, and please, sotto voce, he adds, pointing back toward the kitchen. How do you know it was him? Dylan whispers. I just knew. And what's more, he looks over Dylan's shoulder to make sure Sarah, his wife, is not behind him. Joni was standing right next to him. Joni? Shh. I don't want your mom to know. It'll just make her upset, and she's been through a lot lately. Dylan nods, a scowl now erupting at the corner of his lips. You're jerking me around. No. And don't you dare tell Andrew. That's a brother. He'll have me put away. I sometimes think that if it wasn't for the beautiful Cecilia blocking his path, Andrew, and with your mother's approval, would have signed me into the fucking St. Clair's warehouse for the senile years ago. Charlie bends over then, elbows pressed onto his thighs, turns his head. Anyway, she looked good, happy, exactly like she was that summer, adding, before you know, she was 20. She'll always be 20. I don't know what to say, Dad. Charlie shrugs and reaches over with a grunt for his son's knee, squeezes it. I don't either. Dylan's eyes are cloudy. So what did Joni say? She didn't say anything. She just smiled at me, sweetly, really sweetly, like I'd sometimes see her when she was sitting on the deck and listening to you play your guitar all alone in the backyard. His hand is still on Dylan's knee. So, Dylan whispers, again, eyes flooding, pausing, then glancing through the window at the sparkling green yard. So, what did St. Augustine say to you? He didn't say anything. Mom's right. I don't even believe in God. In fact, it didn't even seem like he noticed me. Maybe it wasn't St. Augustine, just some drugged out beat in robes. Anyway, I thought he was St. Augustine, and he was just standing there, right next to Joni. I'm sure it was her. Then some dog came up. Dog? Bad breath? He's dead too, Dad. They're all dead, Dylan. All three. Augustine, Joni, the breath. The dog was nothing like the breath, except he was fat. It goes on from there. That's
fascinating, right? I forgot the question I was going to ask you. It's a fascinating book. I'm sorry I haven't gotten all the way through it, but I have started reading it.
Oh, good.
Yes.
Good.
Yes.
It was a fascinating book to write.
I can imagine. And it may actually, I thought, oh, I could do this. So it was inspiring.
Oh, good.
That was good. I just started writing different than I have all along. And it's so exciting because, like you say, I don't know what's going to be there.
Right.
And it's just fun, and it's like a puzzle.
Yeah, and it's fun because everything is new.
Right. Yeah. You know. And you're creating it, and it's happening, and it's blah, that. So, what have we missed?
What have we missed?
Yes. What would you like else to add? What have we not talked about that you're going to go home and say, oh, we should have?
Well,
don't we always do that?
You know, maybe I'd like to sort of end with a poem written about my grandson.
Excellent.
let me see. This is, maybe this one. As you well know, this is just a terrible passage to go through. And I woke up one day, turned on my computer, and saw on Facebook that my daughter, my grandson's mother, had posted in Facebook that she wished that people wouldn't hide their happiness from her, thinking they were protecting her. And I thought, oh my God, that is the smartest, bravest, and she did for herself. She needed to do this. Yeah. So anyway, this was the poem that came out of that. It's called Meadow Song. And the partial post from my daughter Nancy is, please do not hide your pride and happiness for fear that you will make me sad. I am sad, of course. As a wailing, colicky infant, she'd turn in my arms and bury her sweet face in the soft hollow between shoulder and chest, pressed to my fearful thumping heart where she'd finally fall asleep. 51 wind-blown years later, I am the one burying my face in a pillow, on my knees behind locked doors, head bowed, hands twisted together, divining away the ache in the belly of my soul. When she appears, a celestial messenger through a computer screen, standing over me with a motherly smile, telling me to get up off this self-pitying floor, this soul-numbing sanctuary from which there is no asylum, extending a soft hand through a pixelated confessional, heading me up the mountain, or leading me up the mountain to the breezy meadow her sweet boy loved, my arm around her narrow shoulders, her arm around my thick waist, his laughter riding the wind through quivering leaves, a song of unrelenting joy, unending sorrow, blowing across our smiling, wet faces.
Thank you.
That's it.
It's very beautiful.
Thank you.
Thank you, Steve. I've enjoyed so much speaking with you.
Thank you. I was so afraid of what this is, because it was so open. It was great.
It was okay?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't want
you to... sort of like writing. There's
it's
something,
like writing.
Something exhilarating. It's also exhilarating looking out here and seeing
all these lovely people.
Seeing these
yes.
people. Yeah.
So thank you. Tonight's guest, Onwards Carry Us live stream from Greenkill, has been Steve Lewis. The exhibition in the gallery at Greenkill until June 29th is a solo multimedia presentation featuring the work of internationally known filmmaker, visual artist, and poet Richard Curling. Greenkill exhibition hours for the 2024 season are Saturday and Sunday, 1 to 6. To arrange for a special appointment to visit the gallery, please call 347-689-2323. Or contact us at 229 Greenkill Avenue at 229 Greenkill at greenkill.org. For more information about exhibitions as well as live stream and live audience events. Located at 229 Greenkill Avenue in Kingston, New York, Greenkill is a public arts performance and education space. We are deeply grateful to David Schell, who organizes, directs, and makes things happen here at Greenkill. Shirley Hoffman Warren composed and performed our musical theme with recording engineer Jason Warren assisting. Many thanks for you for tuning in and watching us on YouTube. And very special thanks to tonight's in-person, in-studio audience, we applaud you. Again, our guest tonight has been Steve Lewis. I hope you enjoyed Words Carry Us for June 20th, 2024. I'm your host, Betty MacDonald. Greenkill, out.